So I am taking a break from doing Invader Zim theories for a while. I still have a couple ideas left for videos on that show, but maybe I'll get back around doing that maybe around October, Halloween time, because I have a very specific idea for then. But for right now, while it's still summertime and before summer ends, I want to do a show that I think takes place majority in the summertime. No, it's not Phineas and Ferb, though I actually probably wouldn't mind doing some Phineas and Ferb videos in the future. Even though I don't really like doing videos on shows that are like super popular, because usually they're overran by having like a lot of theories, and most of the time by the time I get to it, there's just not much left to pick apart. Invader Zim is probably the most popular show I'll ever do, at least for a while. But right now I want to do a show that, while it's doing very well on the network's treating it extremely well, you may or may not have heard of it if you don't really keep up with Disney cartoons. And that's probably actually one of my top 10 cartoons, at least from the 2010s to 2020s. It's called Big City Greens, and it's about this family from the country, from the South, who moved to the big city to basically live with their grandma. And as someone, if you can't tell by my accent, I am from the South myself, not the deep South, more like Southwest Virginia, but to me, I actually find nothing very little insulting about it. Actually, no, I don't think any of the stereotypes are insulting at all. If anything, there's an episode where they make fun of stereotypes that Northerners have of Southerners, and that was so satisfying to watch. But yeah, things like going outside with no shoes, having a lot of farms, and even being overwhelmed by the city, I think is like really good writing for like people that come from the South. As a matter of fact, they write them so well. I actually went back to check if any of the writers that were working on the show were from any southern states. I don't think there was, but they obviously did their research on how people from the South actually act. Because yeah, while they're not so bright and they do seem like fish out of water, they aren't portrayed as being stupid or bigoted either. And I really enjoy that. And even with their grandma having a sword, that's not inaccurate. My Nana literally has a sword hanging up in her living room. Of course, it's like a biblical thing. It's a replica. It's not really something she uses, but still, I was surprised of how accurate that is. Either that or my family's insane. And I like how they show the city being more rural, going to be urbanized over time, and that shows how resistant the grandma is to change, even though she comes a little more less uptight as the show goes on. I like the way Bill responds to things with a dead look in his face all the time, and the show really it makes me like the types of characters I would usually despise. Like with Remy, it would have been really easy just to write him as the snobby or stereotypical rich kid, but he actually has a lot of heart, because while he's rich and spoiled, he has everything done for him, he doesn't like that, and he wants to become more independent and do stuff for himself. Of course, there's times where I kind of find Remy not so enjoyable, like when he gets mad at his guard for wearing the same Halloween outfit. Like, seriously, that was so petty. But it actually did end up making a good little plot thread in the end, so I'm not really going to complain. Overall, I find the show very wholesome, enjoyable, and relaxing to watch. And though I don't really keep up with it the same way I would other shows, because it does feel like it's for a younger demographic than I am, when it's on, when there's a new episode airing every now and then, I do find it quite enjoyable. Particularly Tilly was my favorite character, and is the subject of my first theory here. I know I've talked about before, but I don't want to make it too much of a trope to say, oh, this character is on the autism spectrum. I really feel like Tilly was meant to at least be relatable to girls on the spectrum. Now, it's not that often we get to see this portrayed in media. The only characters that come to my mind that have been confirmed to have autism, in media, are guys. But I think it's important to show that girls have autism too, because there is a myth that they don't. And that's so untrue, because even though they display traits differently, they can still have autism and still be as socially disabled as guys. But I feel like Tilly is on the spectrum, even if it's just from this one line Cricket says, that she has her own way of seeing the world. We sort of just go with it. And sure, this could just mean she's a kid with a highly active imagination, but she does seem to display a pretty big amount of the symptoms, to the point where I do feel like it's almost purposeful that she's written this way. Part of that is that she has a very good vocabulary for her age, and she does act very odd and senile, though she's highly intelligent and very, very sweet. She's highly passive, and she never tries to stop Cricket from doing things unless it's something that can get him hurt. She has very few friends, and even though she's very nice and kind, the fact that she's a little off makes her struggle to make friends. Even though she makes a friend eventually. I really enjoyed the character of her friend being a conspiracy theorist and all. I'm also a bit of a conspiracy theorist. Just putting that out there. And that makes me very happy. And even though it's more common for girls to mask symptoms of autism, Tilly, at least at this point, doesn't seem to do that, and that's because she's, of course, raised in a country where there's not going to be as many people, and also because her family is, their place is so different. She probably doesn't get to interact with very many people her age in general. We never see the kids go to school, and I assume that's either because it's summertime for the majority of the show, or because they're farm kids, and it's actually very common for farm kids not to go to school, or to not go to school very often. At least back then. I don't know how things are now. I guess there's a law saying kids have to go to school, but even then they could be, homeschooled. And Tilly does not seem to understand social cues, not even in the way her brother does. And there's times where that causes her to completely misunderstand things, like when she feels rejected, or she feels like her father doesn't like her presence. She seems to take it as a much bigger deal than it actually is, and becomes depressed. And she doesn't seem to understand that sometimes the things she does is odd. But I enjoy that about her. And I think even if she did know how odd her behavior seemed to people, she wouldn't care, because she's Tilly, and Tilly is just gonna be herself. And while I'm on the topic of autism, I think Cricket might be on the spectrum as well, but on the other side with ADHD. Whereas I feel like Tilly has Asperger's, I think Cricket's highly hyperactive, but that could just be the fact that he's a kid. And given some visions that we have of Cricket in the future, though they may or may not count as canon, he does seem to mellow out. So it could just be Cricket's being a kid, and again, I don't want it to say every single character. yeah, I don't want to say that every single character in every single show ever is on the spectrum. So just take it or leave it. But also, while I'm making a video on the show, I don't want to have to do 2 videos because this next point's really short. So I'm just going to add it here. Hey, another video where I'm analyzing multiple characters. Pretty neat. But I feel like the mama, the character who was literally in jail, Nancy Green, is highly claustrophobic. And I got this idea mostly from the episode where Tilly is telling her a psychological horror story, and it's about opening a door and getting into smaller and smaller rooms, and this makes her physically so uncomfortable that she has to leave the tent. And as someone who's pretty claustrophobic herself and is kind of panicking just a little bit because I'm recording this in a small space because I'm trying to reduce the echo of the videos, I need to get a better mic, to be honest. But yeah, I think that within itself is enough to prove that she's highly claustrophobic. But if we want to take this even further, we can say that she's an empath as well, and that's why she went and released animals from their cages. I literally thought she was a PETA vegan at first because of that, but then she's seen eating beef stew later in the show, so I think she's just someone that eats ethically sourced meat, which is something, as someone who experiments with vegetarianism herself, I can get on with, I guess. Any vegans watching this video is probably going to try to ratio me now, but yeah, at the very least I find her relatable because of that. I don't want to go and do illegal crap because of it, but I can understand feeling empathy for animals. And I wasn't originally going to include this, but as I'm recording, I'm getting more and more ideas about the show. I do want to say I like the fact that Bill has one of his fingers cut off from, I think, a hay bale accident. And it's just something that's casually there. It's just casually thrown in there. It's like, oh, this happened. This is how we're going to design his character. It's just hilarious. It's almost like some dark humor thrown in there. But, and I feel like the reason Bill divorced her, despite the fact they have a lot of chemistry, like a lot, I've loved seeing them interact. I feel like it's because she does illegal crap, and whereas Bill is like he's almost like the Marlin from Nemo in a way. It's like he's the stricter parent who lays down the rules, even though not exactly. Whereas Nancy's like, oh yeah, be free. I don't want to suffocate you kids. Again, because she's claustrophobic. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this show for now. If I get any more ideas, maybe I'll make another video in the future. But yeah, this video is getting a little bit longer than some of my other ones, and I can only put out so much time in like video per month. So I'm going to go ahead and end this here as much as possible. I love you. I love you all. E. Sarah.